This is day 11 of my death fast. By week's end, I expect, and sooner if I can, by week's end I expect to be abstaining from liquids as well. So it won't be too many more weeks before my hope is I'm allowed to die. But more likely I'll be institutionalized and force fed for months or years. I'd much rather be allowed to die than have the living torture of being living in physical restraint, because I'll have to do that. And force feeding. I guess I'm a coward. But either way, the next couple of minutes I hope to outline for you the strategy if one believes in objectivity, probabilities, the way that we can work the miracle, that the miracle can be worked of averting ecocide. One, that enough people that care about this issue with their very soul find the soul, find the responsibility, the courage to face the probability that President Obama is the best ally we could hope to have in the White House, the smartest, the most committed, the most able. That might be one or two in the part that follows. This being day 11, please cut me some slack. Face it, realize he is going to do everything he possibly can, is doing, and will continue to do everything he possibly can without, but not, fall on the ideological sword that the frickin' left wants him to do. They don't really want him to succeed. They just want him to have ideological purity. No, he won't do that. He's too responsible. He's got too many responsibilities to just get his rocks off on pleasing the do-nothing left. Number 3, as I recall, in the following, is that whereas a recent study, and Lord knows President Obama and his staff have taken analysis of we Americans to a whole new level. They know where we are. Recent study indicates that Americans oppose a fee on emissions, but they're in favor of regulation. Number 4 is President Obama has started, and his administration have started and will continue to use the EPA to implement that regulation, which is whacking the hornet's nest of the fossil fuel industry and the right-wing lunatics with a big stick. What he's banking on, and here he's a bit naive, but what he's banking on, now strategically he's right, we just don't think he's worried enough, is number 5. That citizens will mobilize and avoid the final death knell, which would be whacking that hornet's nest like the 2008 election did and bringing the lunatic right out in droves to not only keep the House in 2014, but take the Senate as well. Then it's all over. Whatever EPA regulations he's put in will be gone. And if, as per usual, the left continues to stay on the sidelines, they'll get a Republican president because they'll whip up so much frenzy in this country, as the Tea Party did. They'll whip up so much frenzy, they'll take back the presidency in 2016, roll back everything, and kill and eat up the next 4 years. It's done. It's done. But President Obama's strategy is that we'll take back the House, rather to take back the House, which is a doable miracle, and use the EPA to roll out the regulations to get what we need, which is to bend down the emissions curve 6% per year. And with climate hawks, Secretary of State Kerry, it's not too much of a stretch to see pressure on other countries to do the same in terms of bending down emissions. But what President Obama can't do is provide the spark plug, and I think I'm in number 5, which is us. There has to rise up a Tea To go to a war analogy, if the U.S. and Russia were at war, wars aren't won without the Marines, the vanguard. The armies are huge by comparison. They're not won without the Marines. The right wing will not be defeated without the equivalent of the Marines on the left, the equivalent of the Tea Party on the left. And that's what I'm about, and that's what you have to be about. A bunch of us have to be the catalyst, the example that others choose to follow in their own way of 100% devotion. So there is a Marine force on the left behaving differently, of course, smarter, more humane, but with equal intensity, equal commitment, equal fanaticism. I take some liberties with that word. Or it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen fast enough. That's kind of the outline. Being truthful, as I always attempt to be, because all hope is in the truth, but I want to emphasize it here. I'm not being cynical or snide or mean or nasty. If there's anyone out there that wants to end ecocide more than they want to be ideologically pure, more than they want to have the illusion of solving every problem on Earth and with the United States at once, more than they want to ideologically rant, etc., 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 more than they want to blame, more than they want to feel superior, more than they want to have the pride of authorship of everything being their idea. This is the way, virtually the only way in the world of probabilities, that ecocide can be averted. There are about 3 elements. Here's the broad outline. 1, President Obama is the greatest leader this country has seen, maybe ever, that the world has seen, maybe ever. And number one is to have the wisdom, the humility, the balls to face that probability. There's no certainty in anything. To face that probability. Number two, President Obama, that extraordinary human being. There is nothing that should be done regarding global warming that he wouldn't give his life to do. So number two is to find the balls and the wisdom and the humility to face that. He's not the problem. For his part, he's our greatest hope. Number three, we Americans, as of a recent study, Yale I think, saw it about a month ago, a recent survey, Americans are so fricking stupid, ignorant, and selfish that we still reject the idea of paying a carbon fee. It was an authoritative study. I don't bother with less. But we do not reject regulation, which accomplishes the same thing. I think I'm on number three here. Regulation is the primary way in the United States being the leader, that we avert ecocide. I'll try to come back on these points. Number four, no, number three. Clearly, President Obama is planning to use the EPA. He's already started. There was a Bloomberg article 2-3 weeks ago. If you search Bloomberg on the Tracking Plan B site, I suspect you'll find it. Bloomberg made great note, the Bloomberg publication made great note of an executive order that President Obama put through, I believe it was an executive order, that every federal agency must review the environmental impact of what it does. And I saw a few attendant articles at the time where the fossil fuel industry was horrified at this, saying that that alone could be the death knell of Keystone, killing at a death by 1,000 cuts. I suppose number four is assume that President Obama is going to do everything with the EPA, that he has a modicum of citizen activist support. What do I mean by that? Think of the Tea Party. A modicum of citizen activist support. Polls mean nothing. Look at what the NRA is doing. No, look at what the gun nuts are doing to stand down 95% of the U.S. population. Polls mean nothing. Saying yes means nothing. Standing means everything to the process. So President Obama will do everything that he thinks he has a modicum of citizen activism, passionate, dedicated, committed, serious, Tea Party level citizen action behind it. Not because he's cowardly, he's just unwilling to destroy his power to get things done. It's called political capital, face it. On causes where he can't succeed because citizens won't stand up. Number 5 is probably the most important. President Obama was elected in 2008. Due to tremendous citizen mobilization. And then what happened? The citizens went home. They promised they'd stay on the field. They went home. And what happened 2 years later? The Republicans took the House. And have been blocking what he tried to do ever since. What do you think will happen if in the next year and a half, President Obama aggressively uses the EPA, putting a stick in the hornet's nest of the Tea Party and the lunatic right? And as per usual, but in much greater intensity, they come out in the 2014 election and keep not only the House, which they have all but a lock on due to the gerrymandering that we allowed in 2010, and take the Senate as well. What do you think they'll do to the EPA regulations he put in effect? They're gone. President Obama absolutely knows that. So number 5, if that's what I'm on, is what my life is all about. Raising the sane version of the Tea Party so we don't have a repeat of 2010 in 2014. There has got to be a Tea Party level mobilized group to be certain that we don't lose the Senate and the Republicans don't take the House, to protect the EPA regulations that President Obama is putting in place and would amplify and augment and increase after the 2014 elections if we did that. It matters to understand what the strategy is, these 5 points so far, but all that really matters is number 5. Establishing a Tea Party level equivalent alongside President Obama, not behind him, alongside President Obama on the issue of averting ecocide, ending global warming. Get past your doubts of him. All you're doing is blaming him so you don't have to look in the mirror. There's every objective reason, every objective evidence to know that he is doing his part and will gladly give his life to do his part, but he can't do ours. What monies I've hoarded, I'll be donating to Organizing for Action. They're not enough. They're doing their part. They're instrumental in this. It'll be several $100s that I'll donate to Organizing for Action, because we can't get this done without them. But just like an automobile, sorry for the analogy, just like an automobile needs a spark plug to ignite the fuel, What I'm doing and what hundreds of us have to do, we have to be the spark plug to the soul of America. Organizing for Action can't do that. It's obviously not going fast enough. That's not denigrating what they're doing, but America is lacking a spark plug. They're lacking the Alice Paul and her sisters. They're lacking the Inez Mulholland. They're lacking the Diane Nashes. They're lacking the 1,000 Diane Wilsons. It won't happen without that. You may have, others may have the illusion that it will. There are no do-overs on this. Best case is economic genocide for the next 1,000 generations if we miss this window. They'll be spending their whole lives trying to suck carbon out of the atmosphere fast enough, and the machinery, it's been calculated, will cost them every waking second to build and fund. Economic genocide, economic destitution, which means all of our human rights issues are off the table forever. And more likely, it's Ecocide itself. There are no do-overs. Oops, darn, we didn't get it done in 2013. We didn't get it, we lost the 2014 election. It's game over, friends, at that point. It's game over. So the most important one is we have to be the spark plug. There has to be a Tea Party equivalent and more on the left. And we've probably never done we've never done anything that difficult. It's never happened before. This is a colorless, odorless gas. Most of the carnage is in years in the future. Much more difficult than stopping the Vietnam War. Much more difficult than civil rights. There's just not the material evidence to help wake up the vanguard, let alone the onlookers. The only possible physical evidence that will be able to wake up the onlookers, the sane setter in this country, to come into the fight, will be people behaving in a similar manner to me. There are lots of ways that can manifest, but my entire being is devoted to this. Diane Nash's entire being was devoted to civil rights. Same with Rosa Parks. Same with Diane Wilson. Is that hard to see in them? No, it's not. So have no illusions. Measure yourself according to them. One, two, three, and four are basically going to happen because President Obama is going to do them all. But number 5 is us. You might not have the guts to face 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's just so comforting to blame Obama, to have doubts in Obama. Because if you have doubts in Obama, then that takes you off the hook. No, God damn it. He's doing his part. The fight isn't over at that point. If, as is almost impossible, what I've just laid out actually happens, 5 is the only variable. And that we therefore take the House back in 2014 and have created the Tea Party-like spark plug on averting ecocide. There's much more left to be done, but it's no longer impossible. Now it's quite possible. And look where we are. If we do our part, if we create that Tea Party-like spark plug, and look at the impact that's had on the nation. Negative, but look at the impact that's had on the nation. Then look where we are. We have the House in 2014. We have the Senate in 2014. We have President Obama. We continue to do our job as the spark plug, raising mobilization in the center on this issue, because they see sane people paying the price with their very lives through 100% devotion and dedication. They finally see evidence that some people really live as though this is an emergency rather than act and talk like it's an emergency. Then we hit 2016. Hillary Clinton is elected president. We keep doing our job as the spark plug. It's done. It's won. The war is won at that point. One of the huge traps is, maybe the biggest trap, is the comfortable delusion that, well, okay, good, so what we need to do is win the 2014 election, and then we need to elect Hillary, and it's done. No, because there's no political capital for these people to get the job, to get done what they need to get done. There's no effective lunatics on the right wing in Congress without the Tea Party. There's no blocking of gun control legislation without about, 4 million gun zealots. 4 million out of a population of 300 plus million. There has to be that equivalent on averting ecocide. We have to move, we have to wake up and move the soul of America. And that means individuals, one by one, paying the price of their lives, which means 100% devotion of their being. Not on my watch. Of their being, not their acting. And I don't mean facade. I mean playing a role, playing the role of activist, playing the role of environmental activist. No, Rosa Parks wasn't playing a role, she was being an activist. Rachel Corrie wasn't playing a role, she was being the sister to all of humanity, especially the Palestinians. No, we need, one by one, to ignite others by being a brother or sister to all of humanity. That would do it. I don't see a snowball's chance in hell that'll happen. But I can't tell you my joy in seeing this clearly, and to see that the soul of America is what we have to awaken and move. The soul. It's deeper than the heart. The soul. You've got a soul. It's a psychological phenomenon. It's in all of us. It's DNA given. That's the fulcrum. If you move that, you've moved everything. That's the soul force that Gandhi was talking about. You awaken your soul, you pit your very soul every waking second toward this goal. And you begin to awaken the soul of others. That's the way. There's no other way. That's the way.